DEI hires. I want to run a quick spiel on this because this is coming up a lot. Now, Walmart did a previous video about Walmart's going away from diversity, equity, and inclusion in factoring, employment and things like that. They closed down their racial equity center that was opened up after George Floyd's killing and things like that. So Walmart's getting away from DEI, and my guess is there's going to be other places doing the same. But what is DEI? That's what we're going to talk about. The acronyms obviously stand for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And many folks are in uproar because the belief is that DEI involves hiring someone that is lesser involved in their qualifications, test scores, or their merit, but more based on, them being predominantly a woman or a person of color or a person of color. Putting that person's gender or their race above whether they are actually qualified for the gig. Good example would be female police officers, female firefighters, or maybe even females in the military. Many would suggest that a man is more qualified for those positions, but to satisfy DEI quotas, they're putting women in positions that maybe the women are not as qualified for. That's an example of being a DEI hire. Another example would be Kamala Harris. Now, Biden announced ahead of time he was going to appoint a woman to the Supreme Court, and his running mate would be a female. And I believe he also said it would be a person of color. So that fits the definition of being a DEI hire, which a lot of folks were saying that Kamala Harris was a DEI hire. In addition to Willie Brown, as I brought up earlier, folks are saying that if she was not a woman or person of color, Biden likely would not have appointed her. Now, I'm not a fan of giving somebody a one-up simply because they're a person of color or even their gender. If you have a higher test score than me, you should qualify for the position before I get it, regardless of what your gender or race is. I'm not a fan of DEI hires. However, now that I've cleared that up, I want to submit to you that DEI is essentially the American way. It's only become a major issue once DEI started to be favorable for women and people of color. What the hell do I mean by that? Most of America's history, you already knew the next chief of police, the next mayor of your town, the next Supreme Court justice, the next principal of your high school was going to be a white male. You knew it didn't matter how qualified a black man or a Hispanic woman was, they were not going to get the job. You knew ahead of time. That's why you see a succession of white men in most of the positions I've named in just about every town in America. We've always had DEI is the point I'm trying to make. It just was not called DEI. And for the most part, America had no problem when white men were guaranteed to get all of these positions. Didn't matter how much you studied. Didn't matter how trained you were, how skilled you were. If you was a black woman, you weren't going to be a general. You weren't going to be an astronaut. You had no chance in hell of getting those gigs. They were going to go to a white male, regardless of your qualification. Isn't that DEI? Now, all of a sudden, as I stated, it's being used in favor of races and genders and the gender of females that have been marginalized. And there's a big complaint. And I'll tell you this, the largest complainant is the group that were benefiting from it throughout history. White males. White males overwhelmingly represent the complainants of DEI. The ones who were getting all the DEI gigs throughout most of America's history, they are the ones that generally you hear somebody complaining about DEI as a white male. And I understand that. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, if I know I'm always going to get the first place in line, and now I'm being told, well, sometimes you got to go to the back. I'm not going to like that. I'm not gonna. I was always getting the first. Why the hell I got to sit in the back? Why the hell do I got to get in there and be judged equitably? It didn't used to be that way. So I can understand why white males are the largest voice speaking up against DEI. We can talk about anything else in the comments in relation to that, but I just want to say that DEI has always been around. It just was not called DEI, and it did not benefit women and people of color throughout history. But what do you think? Do you believe DEI in 2024 is wrong, as I just stated? Or do you believe, like corporations used to, like many on the left still believe, that DEI is necessary to counteract hundreds of years of DEI that existed specifically for white males? Let me know in the comments. Let me know if you think I'm getting it wrong on DEI. As always, feel free to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.